Last time we played C9, it went to 5 games.
Cloud9 defying expectations.
It didn't feel like we beat them because we were way better than them. It just felt like we maybe had a better day.
What was Huni thinking there?
I would definitely say that playing around Huni is their comfort play.
If Huni fails, the team fails. We live and die by Huni.
이모탈을 이기면 월드 챔피언십 갈 수 있는데 저한테 이면 3년 만에 다시 가는 월드 챔피언십이고 저를 다시 증명할 수 있는 기회를 얻은 거죠.
It would mean a ton if we made it, but I think Immortals want it just as much, so it'll be tough.
Losing Gauntlet and not going World would be like super sad.
If we really deserve Worlds, then we should be able to beat Immortals twice.
I mean, if we cannot make World, then it's like you have nothing.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final round of the North American Regional Qualifier. We've got a full house today with fans descending on the battle theater to see our remaining Gauntlet teams battle it out for the last ticket to Worlds. We got a nice little pup in the crowd cheering us on, and Huni took to the stage a short time ago, showing the crowd some love. We'll see how he matches up against Impact in the top lane today. And here's the rest of Cloud9. All business, Coach Reaper behind his team as they fight for another Worlds appearance. Thank you so much for watching with us today. I'm James Patterson, returning to the analyst desk for our final day of NA action. Mark Zimmerman and Alberto Crontrangifo. Gentlemen, this is the culmination of the NALCS region. Right here, our third team qualifies for Worlds. Are you ready to see who rounds out this entire picture?
Yep, been saving the best for last in North America, last teams to qualify.
And we had swift 3-0s leading up to this point. Hopefully a longer, more competitive series today.
Hopefully, but all I want to see is the top lane action. God, these guys are playing so well.
Yeah, given the way that they've been performing in the playoffs, it's just made this series all that much more exciting when we look at it on paper. Let's quickly take a look at where our Worlds picture currently stands. In case you missed it, Splice have secured the final European seed, claiming victory over the Unicorns of Love in a 5-game series that just concluded. And Albus Nox Luna from the CIS has secured the final IWC spot after defeating LATAM's Lion Gaming 3-2 yesterday as well. So, gentlemen, this is our entire Worlds picture here. Either C9 or Immortals is joining that roster of teams at Worlds. What do you think of that field?
I mean, overall, I think it's just a really strong field, and I think a lot of the regional qualification matches ended up really close. So I think you'll see a lot of 2 and 3 seeds actually be relatively well matched. Like SKT didn't come flying into the 2 seed. Similarly with CLG.
Samsung Galaxy beating KT, right? And that was a very competitive series, so that as well would lend itself to a competitive group stage.
Even just right now, Splice being taken to 5 games by the Unicorns of Love, who were seen as the complete underdogs in this matchup. So while the teams are fielding the best teams from each region, the regions themselves are quite strong.
Very much so. Well, that leaves us with just the final North American seed left to be determined. To be awarded the winner of today's match, they will be returning to the world stage, either Cloud9 or Immortals for the first time, that organization. So I want to look at that. This is a rematch of our semifinals that took place a few weeks ago. Cloud9 getting the better of Immortals last time, but in a very competitive series.
Right, and I think the big thing is just seeing how the teams adapted since that point in time, because I think we saw that the meta was still relatively fresh. It was the second weekend of the matches, and it's about where they've gone since then.
And despite coming off of a victory yesterday and even defeating Immortals in the semifinals, Meteor still feels that Immortals is coming off a greater high in that they defeated CLG in that third-place matchup. So in terms of having the playoff run and momentum, he feels that Immortals might have that in their favor.
And he might have felt that way yesterday, but I doubt that today they're going in with the ideas that they had before into tonight's matchup, because it's obviously all about right now. And I think that right now, Cloud9 is definitely looking like a much more solid team. We haven't seen Immortals except their match against CLG in the third-place match, and even then they look kind of a little bit shaky. CLG being able to take them to the end of the line.
And I think a lot of people would look at yesterday's series or the fact that C9 had to prepare against 2 opponents as a rather large disadvantage. Some people might claim that. But I would have to say, given the way that the series went yesterday, you have to imagine C9 was probably aware that they'd be in full control there and could focus the majority of their attention here on Immortals and their matchup
They
today.
played everything that they played before. They didn't show anything brand new. The only thing that they showed was Impact's playing even better, which is really
showed the
scary.
Yasuo.
Yeah, okay, so he
Yasuo.
showed Yasuo, right? That's one of the picks, but you can't really count on it too much. We have heard rumors that people are thinking about the Yasuo and Tanara as well,
Right.
as the kind of place where Yasuo top started, but one where we don't want to go back to.
All right. Do you have something you want to add there? You're like,
Yasuo should be fringe. Keep it there.
Very much so. All right, well, an area that you might expect Immortals to gain an advantage is that jungle position, but Reignover's high-pressure presence was conspicuously absent in Toronto. Definitely Smithy getting the better of him throughout that tournament.
Right, and I don't even think it's just Toronto. I think it was the playoffs as a whole. He had the lowest first blood percentage of any jungler. He was second lowest in farm and CS differential. And so I think just Reignover's been struggling a ton this playoff series. He was like top in deaths as well, but that's kind of indicative of how Immortals plays overall. And I think there's just a lot of concerns about how Immortals has transitioned to the new patch of just standard lanes every game.
And watching his play, I think the thing that gets targeted the most that I've seen a change in Reignover is his team fighting itself. A lot of times before, he'd be able to weave the inside of the fight well or dive just a little bit perfectly. So if you're Olaf, he doesn't get the Olaf syndrome where he's getting killed by himself.
Just gets kited out.
But now we've seen him getting caught out by himself so many times. That's so uncharacteristic. But I find that it's probably something that is easy to fix, that it's not something that it's a devolution of his playstyle.
Well, and then of course, we always, when we talk about Reignover, we talk about Huni, and although he might, or up to this point, might have had to compensate a little bit for Reignover's lackluster play, Huni's been flexing his muscles in that top lane, especially on patch 615. And so that, you already hit it, featured matchup today, Impact versus Huni is going to be a sight to behold.
Yeah, I think it's really close too. I mean, Huni's definitely a little bit of a feast or famine player with some weird pocket picks, but Impact just plays the meta super well and is super consistent. Doesn't really have many like bad games.
I have to give him the edge for this one. Being able to play all the champions that make the team composition work doesn't deter from the team itself. Whereas you have Immortals on the other hand, where in order for Huni to get his lane going, he has to go with the counter picks a lot of the time, and that makes the team composition a lot weaker. We saw the Riven game that they played in the semis against each other, that it just didn't work because the comp had no ways to actually fight.
I think we also did see a lot of where Immortals can depend on Huni, because in the games where he was performing well in that semifinal series against C9, they crushed. But then in the games where he was not, he looked a little bit off kilter, they got crushed. And so it was very much, it felt dependent on his performance in the top lane for Immortals.
Right, which is, it feels a little weird to hold that against him, where it's like, well, what's the rest of the team doing? Because like you said, Reignover hasn't been getting going, and we saw Turtle actually getting crushed in most of his laning phases, especially against Jhin, and when 6A was on that, they eventually had to ban it into game 5.
Yeah, I mean, the standard lane, I think, is the one thing that's really hurt them for Immortals. We always saw them as a team that knows how to lane swap well, put the advantages onto the top side wherever they need fit, and it makes it so much easier for the dual lane to get out of any bad matchups that their struggling laning phase can just be completely blown away, and now all of a sudden you got a team that knows exactly what to do in the mid game. You just kind of spiral yourself into mid-game for free.
And while the results of this series might be tough to call, Smoothie, C9's support, guaranteed they'd make it through the gauntlet. And I guess my question to you is, what exactly can we expect to see out of the bot lane of these teams? You touched on Wild Turtle struggling a little bit throughout the playoffs on picks like Jhin. What else do we see as being a big determining factor here in the bot lane?
One thing that Wild Turtle was unable to perform in Toronto was the fact that he couldn't take the Ashe into Jhin matchup. And right now, the meta bottom, you have Ashe, you have Jhin, and you have Sivir, with some AD carries preferring the Lucian or preferring the Ashe every once in a while. And Immortals just did not look comfortable on anything that wasn't the Jhin or the Ezreal, which doesn't really make it very easy for a draft to happen around bottom lane. So you're most likely going to end up stuck with a bottom lane that is losing, and that's not a good place to start.
And the other thing, too, is, of course, the jungle presence down bottom. A lot of teams are taking globals on the top side, and a lot of jungle paths just start on the top side and then path their way down. So there's a lot of attention put to the bot lane, and it seemed like Immortals was struggling at not getting taken advantage of. Like, CLG was constantly turning gigs down there.
When we see the importance of champions like Shen, Talia, double TPs, all of that nonsense, and of course, it always makes its way down to the bot lane. Whenever you have globals on the team, it's always a party in the bot lane. We'll see how it plays out. With all of this in mind, though, it's time for me to put you guys on the spot. Who is going to be taking this series, and in how many games? Mark, we're starting with you.
I say 3-2 Immortals. I think Cloud9's the favorite pretty clearly, but I think there's a couple things that if Immortals do right, then they have a good chance. One is Reignover needs to step up, but I'm going to assume he's going to have a good series. 2, they need to do something about the Jhin. Obviously, Sneaky is like one of the OG Jhin players.
Right.
And then 2 is I want Huni on more meta standard picks. Gnar, Echo, GP, those things are all great for him. Stay away from the Rivens, the Kennons, those kinds of things, hopefully.
Alrighty.
I am going to go with a much more bold prediction and say Cloud9 3-0.
So bold in the number of games
Right.
if
Yes.
we're considering
But
Cloud9 to have a slight favorite.
Yes, so the reason why I think Cloud9 has the edge, Impact looks way too good right now.
Yes.
He is going off. Also, Meteos is just your conservative jungler. He's a guy that doesn't take a whole lot of risk. And again, somebody that Reignover, he will probably, or Reignover won't have as many opportunities to take advantage of somebody doing something that will be easily to punish. Jensen obviously holds his own on mid lane, and the bottom lane of Immortals has just looked so shaky. In the past couple of games that they've had, it just doesn't look very good. The drafts are just off, and they have had so much time to fix these mistakes, and honestly, we haven't seen any of them being tackled.
All right, split decision on the desk, but only time will tell who's made the right choice. So let's send it over to the casters to get us into the game.
Thank you very much, Dash. Welcome to the Battle Theater, everybody. I am Rivington Bizen III, and we're busting out the tri-cast for the Labor Day matchup with Joshua Jat Leesman and the ever-so-sultry Aiden Zyrene Moon.
Sultry?
Yeah, I was listening to your cast yesterday. I can't wait to do it again today because C9 versus Immortals, it's the match we've been waiting for, this entire regional qualifier, and now it's here.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. The team's all ready to go on stage, so without further ado, let's jump right in. First up is Immortals. That means it's going to be Huni coming into the top lane, Reignover controlling your jungle, Pole Belter in mid lane with Wild Turtle and Adrian as your AD carry and support with Coach Dylan behind them.
Gonna try and do better than the semifinals they had against Cloud9 because Cloud9 bested them, and on the other side, we will have Cloud9, and of course, it's Impact who has been dominating in the top lane. Meteos in the jungle. Jensen looking to have a better performance than he did in the finals in Toronto in the mid lane. Sneaky the AD carry, Smooth the support, and Reapered a very talented coach for picks and bans.
And it's actually very funny because we heard on the desk, Mark was saying, you know, Cloud9 favorites because they won last time. It was still an incredibly competitive series. There were a lot of mistakes from Immortals, and are they going to be able to shore up those weaknesses coming into this matchup? Because they've only had to focus on Cloud9 for about a week now, whereas Cloud9, they did have to go through the gauntlet a little bit with Envy.
Yeah, and I'm really excited just to see the draft in this game because we've already seen 5 drafts with these teams against each other, and what's super interesting about playoffs coming into regional qualifier is we're on exactly the same patch. So essentially, you can think of this as a 2-week later extension on their previous series, and what is Game 6 pick and ban's going to look like?
It's going to be amazing. Obviously, the homework has been done throughout the split, but we see it constantly changing. These teams now understand that change, hopefully better than the other as they match up here in this best of 5. We see that, you know, Cloud9 can come back in those late game series. It's going to be tough for Immortals.
And this looks like Immortals want to pinch the Rek'Sai and first pick that away here because top lane is already being pinched by Cloud9. And Huni has such a versatile pool.
This is lining up for a first pick Rek'Sai. If we've seen anything, the Karma and the Rumble are not surprising bans for Cloud9. Karma has been their most banned champion throughout the playoffs, and the Rumble has been banned all but one game against Huni, so not too many surprises on that side.
Yeah, and Huni also has a 100% win rate on that Rumble when he's able to play. Actually, he's played about 6, I believe, in all of summer throughout that, and then when I hear about scrims, it's like you can't leave that open for him.
It's going to be the Gnar and the Jhin on the side of Cloud9 as they see that Rek'Sai. So we'll wait on the jungle, obviously. And the Jhin is a great pickup. Sneaky's been able to do so much with it.
Yeah, and if we look at the priority of these champions from the playoffs, the Jhin is right at the top for Sneaky. The Sivir, actually, I feel like would be at the top for Immortals, and it's what they've had the most success with throughout the regular season. Yeah. And they're almost trapped into doing the Ashe against it right now if they want to bring CC from the bottom lane, which is something they've been trying to do ever since the latter half of the regular season. So that's something that Immortals is going to be picking into unless they have a pretty big departure from their strategy over the last couple weeks.
Vlad left up. Not something we see very often, as well as the Echo. So already a lot of power brought here by Immortals into this game.
Yeah, and the team that will leave the Vladimir up is typically Cloud9 because they favor that Cassiopeia so much for Jensen that they sometimes even blind pick it for him. And we saw that he was able to solo kill Bjergsen in that matchup in the finals in Game 1.
And this is one of the things that's evolved throughout the playoffs. The last time these guys played in the semifinals, Cloud9 actually banned Vladimir in every single game of the series. But then in the finals, they left it open. It was first picked by TSM, and they picked the Cassiopeia into it. So do not be surprised if, even though they haven't picked it yet, if they go with the Cassiopeia on the final pick for Cloud9.
And this may have been what Immortals were also going for with the Zac pick here from Cloud9. Pinch the jungle immediately, try to get him on that Zac because that was the game that Meteos did falter on a little bit.
I actually don't like Cloud9 picking Zac so early here. I think the Cassiopeia could have been a safe pick into the Vladimir because this unlocks Wild Turtle's Ezreal a lot better. He played it in the 5th game game against CLG when he went off on it in Toronto. And Ezreal is very good against Zac. That's now 2 targets that can essentially avoid Zac with the Vladimir and the Ezreal. And I think Meteos is going to struggle to find the right things to Elastic Slingshot into. I think he picked it too early.
A lot of the times, Immortals will kind of stump you on a pick ban phase, and you won't know what they come out with. But this time, we see many champions that are usually on that ban list, and this team is scary from Immortals. It rounds out with the Cassiopeia you guys were talking about for the Cloud9.
Yeah, and Jat, you said they may have picked the Zac a little too early. If you're going to pick the Cassiopeia and you know the Vladimir matchup, well, yeah, they maybe could have waited on that.
Yeah, obviously if Meteos is just confident on Zac, we know that the jungle was pinched with the Gragas being banned and the Rek'Sai being first picked. So if he's not going to be going for Zac, he's probably going for Elise. So you can see why he was willing to pick it early, and you want to give Jensen as much flexibility as possible. But I'm actually pretty happy from a Immortal standpoint with the draft they've been able to put together.
Yeah, but when I look at Cloud9's draft, it's a big question for me is how is Impact going to do on this Gnar? Because it has been his go-to champion. They've first picked it for him many times, first round, and he has been an absolute monster. He's been, honestly, SKT Impact, you know what we've been saying that? He's Cloud9 Impact right now. This guy, it's a new era for him, and he's redefining himself.
And people haven't been able to figure out what to pick against his Gnar. In other regions, like if we watch Samsung versus KT, you saw QV play Kennen against it and crush. But when you see Kennen get played against Impact's Gnar, he just solo kills Seraph like 17 times. So he's been dominating on that champion.
Absolutely amazing. We're going to be keeping an eye on the top lane as well. This series is going to be a close one. Let us know which way you think it's going to swing by tweeting us hashtag IMT win or hashtag C9 win to show your support, and we'll tally those up and show them on screen as we get into game. Everybody's wondering about the top lane, but each lane here could carry the game for either team. As we come into this matchup, who will be the final qualifier going to Worlds for NA? We're going to find out here in this best of 5 series, Immortals versus Cloud9, and we are on the Rift.
When I look at the compositions, immediately I look at the Immortals composition and think that Adrian, you know, he's a big part of their CC here, and he has to be on point with his bindings in fights as well as his ultimates to possibly set up Huni for those team fights. It's a lot of backline dive with the Vladimir as well as having the Echo, so they're going to try to get onto Sneaky and blow up these low mobility carries.
Yeah, the Bard is definitely something we haven't seen a lot of from Adrian. His champion pool has changed a lot as the season has progressed. He was the range support guy with the Soraka and the Shanna earlier on, which was different than the 2015 version of Adrian, who was the engage guy.
Yeah, the Leona and all of that stuff. He even played Morgana back when he was in Challenger as 10Q.
And I think one of the biggest criticisms of Adrian is like, oh, small champion pool can't play very much, because when he does find his champions, he seems to focus on them. But what's interesting this year, his Taric was fantastic in Toronto, and now we're going to get to see what his Bard brings to the table. And like you said, it's a focal point of this composition, and he has to be able to land that CC.
He's also somebody you never really, until, or I guess back in the day, getting that Leona ban, he really doesn't see too many banned towards him now. So if he can keep playing the same things, hide those in the back, practice them when you can, and then you bring them out on the Rift, nobody expects it because you're that guy that just plays ranged.
Yeah, exactly. The Soraka used to be the second most banned champion against Immortals, right behind the Rumble, but people haven't been banning it as of late. It just hasn't been the same type of... it's funny, too, because you would think that it would be a high-priority ban because standard lanes and a high-priority pick. That's true. Soraka usually does well in them, but because we're having such types of carry top laners and mid laners with lower CC, you have to have some type of CC from the bot lane. It's why we're seeing a lot of protection champions like Bard, like Rom, like Tom Kench that also have some CC.
Yeah, and I also find that really interesting because if when we look at Immortals and their 17-1 regular season in the spring and even their great start in the summer, they were getting away without a lot of CC in their composition, yet they consistently pointed that out as a flaw in their drafts and have worked towards putting more CC in. Yet, when they do put the CC in the bottom lane, it does seem like they have some execution problems actually pulling it off. So it's been a bit of a strange year for Immortals as they try to change their strategy and have stumbled.
Yeah, and this is even just a lower CC composition than most AD carries would usually have because it's the Ashe, the Jhin, and even the Sivir sometimes is just used for utility. Ezreal's just pure damage, a little bit of kiting too.
As we jump into the lanes, Impact taking a bit of a hit, but Huni's got the long range that he can keep throwing out across minions, so no worries. Should be safe on both sides for now, just farming up. Good spot for Huni, though, to have this wave, as it's just going to keep piling up in his favor. Junglers are opposite sides of the map, so we may not see too much action just yet. See, Rainover may get some warding done here.
Yeah, Rainover's actually done a very interesting path. He started at his Grom, ran down to his red buff, and now has doubled back towards the top side. So it almost seems like he's there to aid Huni in case he gets ganked, because oftentimes if Huni's pushed up around 3.5 minutes is when you would expect a gank to arrive in that lane. But Rainover is in the vicinity to prevent that. And of course, Meteos is nowhere close, but this is total guesswork as far as junglers are concerned.
Yeah, and things are a little bit more predictable with standard lanes too, because you know that junglers start on the top side of the map. They don't start on the bottom because they AD carry wants to take that camp.
Right.
So Meteos didn't gank around 3 minutes, so then Rainover was able to go to the top side, make sure that he could get some coverage over there, and Adrian even invaded just to make sure.
This choice in Zac as well does allow Jensen to get that blue buff, as Rainover would be giving it over to Pole Belter, so he kind of keeps in pace with that. Not that Pole Belter needs that much mana.
Yeah, and also when we look at this top lane matchup, the biggest thing to point out is the jungle proximity percentage. This is the percentage of the time the jungler is within 2,000 units of the top laner. You can see more than double for Huni with Rainover, and that's actually a little bit lower than you would expect sometimes with the way Rainover would camp for Huni. But it just kind of goes to show that Impact has been having this performance without the help of Meteos.
Very, very true.
He said it was so easy to play alongside him. Just top die and
you don't have to worry about him. You don't gank for him, and he still gets kills.
Yeah, he's really been almost like a luxury for the team since playoffs started, where you don't have to put anything into him, and he's just paying it off. It's weird. It's a great performance from him.
The things he's been able to do recently creates such a scramble for the opposing team. If he can get that lead, he understands. Like he may die in the side lane, but his pressure is actually useful. I don't know if Immortals is going to let that pressure
Rainover's
go
got
to
to gank
waste,
fast.
though.
He's on a ward, so C9's got to play retreat.
Nice gank. Looks to go for Smoothie. He can still jump back to Sneaky here if he wants to. Actually goes for the flash out the heal as well from Sneaky.
2 summoner spells is critical for Rainover on that gank. It does cost him a decent amount of health, and he did reveal on the map, but that's actually a great gank for him. He needed to recall anyways because he hadn't shopped, and with 2 summoners down, that can apply a lot of pressure to that duo side.
Exactly, especially a flash where you can just repeat gank that, use your own flash to end up closing that distance and almost guaranteeing a kill next time he visits. So this may pull Meteos' attention towards the bottom, which could be a little bit of a jungle map movement juke, where now maybe Rainover plays towards the top side because he gave advantage to his bottom already.
You saw Meteos throw a quick ward in there, starting to get forward ones in. Gives him an idea of where Rainover is. We saw in their previous match with Zac that just one missed gank on Zac kind of threw the game in favor of Immortals there. He had 2 good ones, but just a hair away on a 3rd one, and it swings it.
That was totally Jensen, though. I'm going to say that. Jensen missed so many skill shots in that one.
Yeah, and you look at him now, he's level 5. That's around the time when Zac's ganks start to become a little bit threatening. Level 6, 7, and 9 are the other big breakpoints where he gets the big ganks off. And the fact that Rainover hasn't heavily counter-jungled Meteos or had successful ganks before that point does actually favor Cloud9 a little bit, because this is when Zac can look to kind of bring things back, so to speak, in a normal matchup, but he actually hasn't really fallen that far behind yet.
Yep. Jensen able to keep CS up, 58-44. I won't see too much roaming from these mid laners just yet, though, as they keep each other pushed into their turrets. Impact has finally gotten to the other side of the river with his wave, so we'll see if he can do any damage to Huni, who is easily farming up. Pretty safe game overall. Nobody really wants to make the first move, it seems, here. But Rainover with the vision knowledge. Actually, lack of vision. Still just trying it, I should say.
Yeah, look at the gap in wards for C9 on the bottom side of that map, and a lot of this is a continuation of Rainover's gank earlier. He got 2 summoners out of the bottom side. Therefore, Smoothie and Sneaky don't want to push up. Meteos doesn't want to visit a losing lane, so they just kind of abandon that side of the map. And Rek'Sai is spectacular at soloing the dragon. He gets a little bit of help from Adrian and Turtle because they're pushed up, and that's a great early advantage for Immortals.
Yeah, and you can see that Meteos was trying to make something happen on the top side of the map, maybe if Huni plays a little too far forward, but Huni was aware of where he needed to be, and the Ocean Drake falls into his hands, which is great for Echo because you're spending so much mana in these trades early on against Dinar.
Rainover as well, making quick work of all of his camps. Meteos gets a tunnel on his way in and out there. Gromp perfectly spawns as he void rushes in. And they're not too far behind each other. Pretty close, 36-32. Building up on their items here as Meteos is taking a little longer to go back and get that second purchase in. Cloud Drake is coming up next. And so far, the only pressure towards bottom was acted on as a dragon here for Immortals. They didn't go back at Sneaky and Smoothie for another gank just yet.
Yeah, and we think about the top lane matchup so much between Impact and Huni. We've seen the jungle pressure on the bottom side, but the mid lane matchup in this game is really interesting to me as well because Pobelter feels so confident on Vladimir. When you hear him talk about this pick, he usually thinks it's GG as soon as they get a lock in. He's amazing on it in team fights. But then you look at Jensen, who has probably equally as much confidence lately on Cassiopeia. Yeah, the 7-0 Pobelter.
Exactly.
It's GG when he gets it a lot of the time. Jensen picked Cassiopeia into Bjergsen's Vladimir, and that was the only win C9 had in the finals. Then had to deal with Bjergsen's Cassiopeia and got crushed. So these are two players on champions they're very good at, and they're really isolated in that mid lane, which is super exciting.
Hopefully we get a little action out of them too. Like you said, Pobelter going hard with that flash up means the play could be made, but the same from Jensen as we get a little bit down here. Scuffle around the Dragon Pit. Twin Fangs is going to push Pobelter out.
Really bad. Oh,
He should be easy on that one. No ignites for the mid laners.
Early pool there too. Making sure that he can't follow him.
That's true. A few more flash and a poison tick could definitely take him out.
It still puts him very low and in a bad position in this lane.
Dragon's already down, so kind of fighting over scuttle control here, as well as possibly picking out some summoners. Nothing comes of it really. It's like Jensen and Pobelter both hold there as Rainover gets control of the area, and they now get to sneak in a little bit here.
Got to be careful not to mess up this. That was great pressure by Rainover, forcing the smite. Jensen may have wanted to stick around a little bit longer in lane, but he knows he's going to run out of mana right now. He even baits his recall. He's like, wait a minute, Pobelter shoved up. Now he has to lane with lower mana, and that's going to allow Pobelter to catch up.
Exactly. Cassiopeia, it's a little bit free to actually CS with this because you get mana back when you last hit, but he has his tier and he wants to be able to just spam the spells out with a high frequency.
The command has been given.
Yeah.
By Hive. Activate Jensen.
It was extremely powerful for him last regional qualifier, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting thing to note because Cloud9, since their inception, have always made Worlds, and if they make it this time, it's the first time they've done it without High.
And you look at Immortals, and this is the team that was basically built to go to Worlds. For some reason, there's a curse all over the world on teams to do that, and they don't find themselves. Super teams don't find themselves going. Another amazing split, and if that's number 2, it's crazy if they don't go.
Yeah, going 33-3.
Yeah, overall,
over the year in regular season, and then failing in playoffs twice and getting 3rd place. It could be one of the biggest flops that a team has seen in postseason in NA.
Oh, that's
blocked by Smoothie.
They are the final boss here. We'll see if they can put up that fight.
Yeah.
Good knockout in the top lane by Impact as bot lane, they get a little bit aggressive. We thought it would stay calm.
Yeah, and to just combo off that Siren, high stakes for all of these teams. Like,
yeah.
Rainover and Huni were in the World semifinals last year. Wild Turtle, since he joined the competitive scene back in 2013, always goes to Worlds. Like, both of these teams have so much on the line, but only one of them gets to go. And it, for whatever reason, I feel like they're both good enough to
They are.
but only one can, which makes this game really tense. Clear that wave Impact.
Boom. Very satisfying. Instantly gets him a good back there and forces Huni to have to use the ultimate to go back.
Small advantages that are making Impact a little bit bigger. You got that CS lead. Huni can obviously still put up a huge fight as he comes in. He'll be right for sneaky on that back line and looking for Jensen. So the fights are going to be hectic with these divers.
Yeah, and it almost seems like this game is going to be going into whoever can get the item power spikes first, and then force a team fight in the right spot. Because Impact has a minor CS advantage over Huni, Jensen has a minor CS advantage over Pobelter, and then the dual lane for Immortals has a minor CS advantage over C9 thanks to the gank. I think favorably wise, the solo lanes are kind of going towards C9, but if Huni gets his Trinity Force around the time Impact gets Frozen Mallet, and likewise with the Spirit Visage on Pobelter, like those 10 CS advantages aren't actually going to matter in team fights. It's going to be all about the team fight setup.
Exactly, and the team fights really matter because these teams are not exactly built for sieging. Sure, you have a split pushing top laner if they get ahead, but your wave clear and the other 4 members is a little bit unsafe. C9, they have a little bit better wave clear, but Immortals will struggle in that regard if they're put in a siege situation. So it's about those team fights.
And something we have to keep a look on in those fights is both supports exhaust. High damage from the mid laners. Huni as well in that top lane. What's the choice? You can't make the wrong one with that exhaust in that moment. It's going to be very, very tense with the supports as well. Keep an eye on everything as it comes around. Only 12 minutes in on this one, and still 0 deaths. First blood, first turret still to come, so we're looking for that gold lead to actually pop out of nowhere. It doesn't look like anybody's setting up too much to make that happen. Rainover, however, is getting himself into Meteos' jungle.
Going to Meteos' jungle, they saw that Meteos was hanging out by the Raptors, so now Pobelter will play a little bit safer in the meantime because he hasn't seen the Zac leave the jungle. They're also playing to this side on Cloud9's bottom half. They shoved up the wave. They have their support and AD carry in that tri-brush. And they're just trying to protect that red buff.
Protect the red buff. Also just get control of the jungle here. It's what C9 kind of seems to have done. Turtle and Adrian could be in a little bit of trouble if they decided to dive, but with all the people that can feint down bottom, it wouldn't be it could be a dive that gets turned around because almost everyone from Immortals could arrive.
Yeah, and they don't have vision control in that jungle, so you can see Pobelter just hanging out there. He doesn't know just yet that Cassiopeia is down there. Now he's going to see that and say, okay, I can shove it up. Because if he had gone straight into that bush, he may have been killed and chased down by Jensen.
Yeah, the tension to me in this game is really building up because I don't expect the teams to stay this passive for much longer. They played a 5-game series 2 weeks ago, and the fewest kills we had in any of those games was 24. So I feel like the pace is going to increase pretty hectically pretty soon.
And that's been Immortals' thing, too, is once the game gets out of hand, they just keep going. Whether they lost the fight, they try to win the next one, or if they won that fight, they're like, all right, this fight's going to be easier, and they keep doing that. It's that skirmish style. Once they find an advantage, they don't just sit on it. They try to push it out.
And that's exactly what this is building to be. The later they go, the more damage they have. The one fight now means turrets after that, means much more after that since you're farther into the game. Almost got a solo one there. Impact trying to put another one in the book.
And this is before Frozen Mallet. So Impact is doing a tremendous job to pressure Huni. Huni wants to recall and then ult back, but he also doesn't want to recall before he has enough gold for his Trinity Force. So he's on a really greedy timing right here to try and make sure he doesn't get solo killed.
And there really hasn't been any, I wouldn't even say love for Meteos, but it's almost like Impact is saying, no pressure towards this lane, let it be 1v1. If Brainover comes up, I'll do the best to save myself. But Meteos has kept himself in the jungle and more towards the bot lane mid lane.
And Meteos hasn't fallen very far behind Rainover and CS either. I think Rainover, from a teamfight perspective, is going to be much stronger right now. Cinderhulk and Jararm's Fist fully stacked up right there. But Meteos isn't even sitting on a completed jungle item yet. He really wants to get a Cinderhulk, but he's kind of a little bit of everything in that item build.
Yeah, there's always that risk if you back right now that a gank happens on top side. It's just that Rainover pressure. And Cloud Drake is also on the table, and the vision control has just fallen off. So he has to back, finally get some items for himself, and then reestablish control, and that's why he's coming back with a lot of wards. Oh, sneaky impact there.
Clever.
Mega.
Quick hit. He does have Chrono Break. Mega will come off of the minions, and this may just be a teleport back or a Chrono Break back. Rainover was even topside to give a little bit of support here.
Yeah, that would have been interesting if Impact had actually launched off his head and got ahead of him.
Into the turret range.
Rainover was in the area, so he was kind of prepared for that. Yeah, that's going to mean item break points hit by both of these guys. Huni ulted back, actually, before he could heal the full, but he did stack up his Corruption Potion, and he's maintaining his teleport with the Triforce. But when Impact gets Frozen Mallet, I feel like that's a power spike that actually helps Impact more than it helps the Trinity Force user and Echo.
Yeah, that's very true. It ends up allowing him to chase you down the lane, so every time you push up past the middle point, you risk getting solo killed by the Gnar, whereas the Echo, it gives you that cooldown reduction so you can keep farming the wave with your double Qs, but other than that, it's mostly for killing the AD carry.
Now this becomes a little scary. Jensen, Morellonomicon with that Abyssal Scepter. He can definitely still kill Wild Turtle or somebody quick if they come up. I think they're gonna beat that one up.
Huni just backed and bought an Elixir of Sorcery. Hasn't popped it yet, so he is waiting.
Fight time, he stole it!
Oh, Meteos able to get it. Remember, he still has his passive. Pobelter gets knocked out. We're gonna see Adrian going down. The Tempered Fate does not help too much. And they are on to Smoothie. Immortals now losing. 2 more. Double kill coming in now for Sneaky. This is huge for Cloud9, and they are just able to rout Immortals. They push them back into the own side near their blue buff, and now they are on to Wild Turtle. That's going to be the cleanup. It seemed like all of Immortals' ults just kind of did nothing to the C9 composition.
It was such a strange setup because it almost looked like Immortals was just going to be gifted the Drake, and I think that put them
That's what caught me
into
off
a
guard.
false sense of security, but guess what? Meteos can fly across the screen, steals the Drake, and that itself was a distraction, and it almost felt like Immortals was distracted in that fight, whereas C9 was very focused.
And that's going to be the first turret gold as well, going over to Cloud9, and it's just split between Meteos and Sneaky here.
That's the explosion we were waiting for in this game.
Yeah.
And now the question will be whether or not Immortals can recover from that, because in the past they just continue to go in. But that is such a massive team fight loss.
Yeah, and let's see this again, because they pull it out, and then Immortals start walking through. It's already half HP. They think they're going to be gifted it, like you said, but it's right on the Scuttle Crab. They have full vision of this.
Yeah, and I was expecting Huni to teleport in earlier. He was recalled and running back to base, yet it's Impact that beats him heavily to this. The Jhin ultimate gets a couple of shots off before the Bard ultimate hits. Adrian ends up falling, and then Pulled Out there only gets his ultimate on a small crew of people. So really, it's like Riv said, the Immortals ultimates didn't really amount to anything in this fight.
Yeah, and in contrast, the Cloud9 ultimates were quite good. Sneaky ended up getting a kill with one of his, and then Smoothie's ultimate was across 2 to 3 people there, and one of them was Pobelter, so he was holding up the Vladimir from getting towards that back line.
Spent a lot of that fight trying to figure out where the ults went. It seems like they just to the void.
Well, Huni didn't have his.
That's right.
Pobelter used his on a
he
few
just
people.
came back up.
Rek'Sai doesn't really have a real ultimate, and Adrian's ultimate was used directly onto Sneaky. So like they used them, but they just weren't going to have a big impact.
Well, this is what you talked about, Zyrene. Once it opens up, Immortals, whether they were on the winning or losing end, they're still going into fight as soon as they come back. They recognize an opening in mid and are able to break down that turret. That allows for more forward vision. His Impact here, creating his own pressure on the top side for the entirety of this 20 minutes. Gets the turret for himself.
He gets turret for himself, and now Meteos actually looking towards the mid lane just to shove it back out and make sure that they can establish a little bit of control here. They bring their bottom lane as well. And it's a little bit of a siege situation here.
Yeah, it's the only remaining outer turret for Immortals. C9 was able to take the top and the bottom, and since they still have some shove in the bottom side, it's natural that they move people up here and maybe try and get some wards in the jungle, but respect is given, they back away, it's time to buy some items.
And speaking of buying items, it's the Trinity Force as well for Wild Turtle. So this composition will kill turrets quite quickly with the double Trinity Forces when they get to them. But it's, once again, low CC, no Iceborne Gauntlet here. So when you're in these team fights, you really have to make the CC you have count.
Yeah, and that means not having the Bard ultimate just used to interrupt the Jhin ultimate after it does damage. It needs to be used to help initiate the fights and get in range so that Huni and Pobelter can set up. That is one of the greatest synergies that we have with Bard, is the Echo parallel convergence. You just get the 2.5-second stun off of the Bard stasis, but that's never going to happen in the manner that Immortals played the last fight.
That's the typical use of the Bard ultimate, is to interrupt the Jhin, so Adrian is going to have to, first off, realize that he needs to use it onto somebody like Jensen and Sneaky simultaneously, but Cloud9 can avoid that, because I think that Smoothie is doing a great job of stalling the front line.
Ooh, Rainover looking to do a little warding by himself. Always a dangerous proposition. He gets himself taken out as Cloud9 collapses immediately. This may be the pressure they need for mid.
And Rainover, once again, he hasn't really been looking like himself since playoffs started. And this is maybe the start of something where there's playoffs Rainover, where there's a lot of pressure on him, and Immortals just haven't been able to deliver in that circumstance.
Gorgeous CC chain by C9 right there, and they only burned the Zac ultimate, so they go straight to Baron.
All right.
This will delay, but will they continue on? If Baron's at 5k health, Immortals would have to go.
Pobelter throws the Hemo Plague down. 3 members having to back off. Exhaust very early onto Pobelter. He's able to pull that off. Full damage now coming in from Immortals if they want to start attacking, and that scares C9 enough for them to pull off.
Baron at 20 minutes is incredibly threatening and can take half of a team's health by himself. So when Immortals approach, they're very smart not to fully commit, knowing that C9's going to have Baron threat from the other side, and I think C9's smart to back off without suffering any casualties.
Overall, still a good exhaust from Smoothie as he tries to mitigate that Hemo Plague damage and make sure nobody falls to some extra Baron hits on the way out. 5-1 here as things have definitely started to heat up. Immortals looking for a lot more. Impact cleaning up a wave in the top side here as Huni might have a little bit of time to roam and help the team out.
Exactly, and in 45 seconds that Infernal Drake spawns, and that's what everybody is setting up for now. Get your visions down. Get your visions down. Get your vision down.
Get all your visions
all your visions
down.
And it's interesting from an itemization standpoint. Impact has got the build with Black Cleaver, Frozen Mallet. Although the Cleaver is completed before any real armor has been stacked up on Immortals outside of the Warden's Mail from Rainover. So the ideal for Cloud9 is if Impact could have turret threat while the Drake is being taken and then still arrive first. Really, C9 is hoping for a repeat performance from the last Drake where Meteos can get a nice engage, and Immortals can't engage with the bar.
Or caught
They just
again.
catch Adrian, or right Rainover.
Very close.
That's not good for Immortals. His ultimate's down as well, so he can't get to full health before this Drake is forced.
We don't see it very often, but Immortals now having to use almost quite a few things in defense. Looks like they're a little hesitant to take away at this dragon.
And this Drake is incredibly important for both teams. You really want this if you're Immortals, but it's also a Jhin and Cassiopeia with one TP right into the middle of everybody here from Huni, and Pobelter goes in.
They're on Meteos right now, trying to get him out. Smoothie very low as he flashes out as well. Impact in the middle of the fight onto Huni. He chrono breaks back, and they're gonna have a double kill now for Impact as he Mega Nars out just before going down. Pobelter against the wall will have to pull to get out, but he goes down to the captive audience. And they're gonna be onto the Infernal. Cloud9 come up huge.
And that looked like it was going to be Immortals' fight at the beginning. Huni with the TP right in the middle of everybody, and the damage came down from the Hemo Plague, but the CC from Cloud9 turned it around, and they played that reverse perfectly.
They are just chaining their CC together so well and have such crisp team fighting right now. They're not allowing Immortals to lock them down for those final kills, and the turnarounds are just continually there. The Rylai's being completed on the Cassio, Impact being so fearless on Gnar. It's all working out for C9 right now.
And Pobelter thinks he has the perfect flank. That ward goes down, TPs to it, throws down on three. Those are the two damage dealers. They get very low. Smoothie blocks the ultimate, and Sneaky and Smoothie get away where Jensen's now in a corner, and he doesn't have threat on him. Meteos covers the ground, and now Immortals are in full retreat.
Yeah, and again, the Bard ultimate does go down onto the Jhin, but it's a one-shot off, and you're basically just trading ultimates at that point, so C9 can then continue the fight, and that is not what Rainover wants to see. Now 0-3 on the game.
Going to be difficult. You obviously know this is the best of series. You still want to win each one, so with that in mind, there's that extra weight now on Immortals here to make this game one again in their favor, falling down 5,000 gold, and the dominoes keep falling. Every time Meteos can get in range, he's got somebody as well on those Zac hits, and they've only almost taken down Rainover 3 times.
And you can see that Rainover right there flashes into the magical journey because he's just so scarred from if I die. You know, they've shown they have enough damage to take me down. Now the Baron started. They know this is happening.
They chunked Rainover with the curtain call.
Pobelter's not there. He's on the bottom.
Impact is fighting 2v1 right now. Rainover's going to go down. Impact able to just soak up so much damage. Turtle in. He's got that Muramana finish. They're trying to put down the damage. Great shot from Huni and Wild Turtle. And again, Cloud9 try to go for Baron, and this may just be them and their fate going away here for this game.
This one was a little more painful, though, because they actually suffer casualties thanks to Wild Turtle consistently DPSing on the backside of that fight. He had just transformed his Manamune into a Muramana, so he was hitting really hard.
Yeah.
And C9 really overestimate their strength going for that Baron.
Yeah, Impact, it looked like he didn't expect that much damage to come through and ends up dropping when Huni comes back in again. This is a good call from C9 in theory because you see Pobelter on the bottom side of the map. You already chunked out Rainover and Adrian gets low. Then they all go onto Rainover and they really aren't paying too much attention to Wild Turtle.
Exactly, and after they get that kill, they either should have continued on to Wild Turtle or just completely cooled off the Baron because they never actually dealt with the biggest threat that was in the fight, and that was Wild Turtle. So Huni also was able to come in from the top side and pick up another kill, and that actually keeps the game quite close.
So finally Impact going for that Guardian Angel, a little bit of defense. Aegis of the Legions being finished up here for a bit of that magic resistance, which is imperative against these Immortal teams. I always love to bring that AP to the table, and once again they have done so with the Vladimir and Echo composition. And looking to round that out with the Ezreal. 3-9 here, 27 minutes in. Again, Cloud9 approached the Baron, and they've been pushed away twice.
Yeah, and a lot of this game is about setting up the right team fights, and it's something C9 has been able to do. I do want to talk about the ideal team fight for Immortals, though, because we keep talking about Adrian ulting Sneaky. That is good, but it needs to be followed. If they can follow that with Huni or Pobelter, then it works, but it could also just be a pick. Pobelter's in trouble.
Rainover on the back line.
You take away that synergy of one, Dustbringer goes down, Glacial Fissure as well into Rainover. This could mean Baron as well. The 50-50 is off the table. Huni is going to get taken down before he can even use his ultimate. 45 seconds on the clock for these death timers, and now it's just Immortals trying to toy with Cloud9 as Impact gives the medicine right back to Pobelter here.
I really feel like the synergy is just not working for Immortals right now. So much of the year has been Adrian following up on Huni and Rainover. But in this combination, Huni and Rainover need to follow up with Adrian, and he seems to be waiting for them to make the move anyway, and they're getting very ineffective Bard ultimates. Now C9 with 2 dead, turn for Baron yet again.
And here comes TP from Impact. Wild Turtle gonna have to go over the wall and get out of there. But
captive audience! Into the deadly flourish. You couldn't have planned it better. But it works out for Cloud9 once again. Unfortunately for Immortals, now this Baron will fall.
But do they give it up? Rainover and Huni are on their way.
It's going to be the shield up, unbreakable for Smoothie. It's what he's been for the team just about all split long. He tries.
Huni's in the back of the pit.
Last time in the front. Parallel convergence is over, but he was not in it. Meteor still has time to move. Huni now taking some shots. Impact jumps towards the team. Pobelter's going to take a last hit here. The Miasma out. One last Q. The Noxious blast over the wall, but he can't get in range.
Just flash.
Pobelter stays alive. Oh, yeah, just flash. That's the name of the game in that one. And Cloud9 say, thank you for Baron. And now they're going to start heading forward down mid.
A completely hectic series of events
Absolutely
there.
crazy.
Impact zoning them off. They're going to get more off of this. C9 have been playing these fights better because it's a little bit easier for them to execute because Immortals have drafted themselves a composition that is very hard to execute.
Yeah, and Immortals is also throwing themselves into the fire over and over again, and C9 is laying in wait. When we see that fight again, I really want to call attention to Jensen's Cassiopeia because I felt like his DPS uptime was incredibly high. Like he was doing the majority of the damage in that fight like he had to and really matching Pobelter. Watch this. So C9 is taking the Baron on one side. Huni's flanking around the side, but it's just Jensen. He positioned himself away from Huni and Adrian, then just shreds through Rainover, and there's no way he's allowing Pobelter to walk through him to the rest of the team. C9 is actually distracted with the Baron right there to finish it off, and it's because Jensen was just bodying 2 people on the other side of the fight.
You don't say.
Yeah, the command was given.
I apologize for the meme, but that's exactly what he was doing.
Well, you never have to apologize for memeing.
Yeah.
IMT cleaning up every resource they can in their jungle so it does not go to Cloud9. Anything past this Dragon Pit right now is owned by them. And we've seen Immortals come back from more. A bigger deficit than this, so cannot count them out just yet. They're also hitting a few more breakpoints. Wild Turtle needs to start, I don't know, he needs to have kind of more of a backline safety, but everybody on his team is diving in.
Yeah, but they're also getting caught too, and I think Sneaky's Jin deserves a lot of credit here, as well as Smoothie, because you look at how many times Rainover's been caught, it's usually from that. They get the binding, and then the Zac has the elastic slingshot in with the follow-up, the knockback, and they're just catching somebody out before these fights even start, large portion of the time.
Yeah, and with Baron buff up right now, it's the attempt of the Siege. We can see how well Immortals would be able to clear it, but Impact has a split pushing build as well as a Guardian Angel, and they're trying to do a classic 4-1 split push here.
Jensen's Miasma does so much, covering that ground from Huni coming in, Turtle trying to get a few shots and then get out. They really get a little bit more time to work with here as they approach these structures. Back to the top lane, looks like Pobelter's going to be taking care of Impact for now. Or that GA is definitely going to be a problem. Deadly Flourish onto Turtle. He's going to take a bit more poison. And I say a bit, almost goes down. A great hit up from Rainover, but can the rest of the team follow? That has been the question. He is a focus, and he goes down immediately as Pobelter finds himself left alone on the front line. Another one, a triple goes to Sneaky, looking for the Quadra. Huni's just out of range of the curtain call as he exits stage left, and Adrian will make it to the fountain. Another 3 go down, and that's been the special number for C9 in these fights.
And C9 are going to push for an inhibitor here and get so much off of that. The picks that they're getting, there's so much damage onto Wild Turtle, he can't even rejoin the fight. And that's when Immortals decide to engage, is when their DPS has been pushed off.
And we also have to keep in mind, at this point in the game, Cloud9 is really far ahead, so they might actually end the game off those 3 kills.
On to that last Nexus turret, Sneaky with the focus. Meteos knows can't take too long. The Nexus is opening game number 1. And after a very even 15 minutes, this bomb exploded for Cloud9, and it is 1-0.
Yeah, slow start, fast finish for Cloud9. 18 kills after not getting first blood until about the 15 or 16 minute mark. And that's going to leave a sting for Immortals, knowing they have to win 3 of the next 4.
Yeah, slow for the beginning, but as soon as they were able to take these risks, and they had already gotten some dragons and some good team fights, immediately they tried Baron at 20 minutes. They are trying these things. That's the boldness to just try and close the game out immediately at 31.5 minutes. Absolutely incredible that they are taking these types of risks right here in the North American Regional Qualifier with Worlds on the line. They are showing no fear.
And the intensity in this game shows. These are my favorite types of games because the teams come in at such an even level that Immortals could do that same thing next game. They can come out even. They could come out even stronger and make it happen in, say a 27-minute game. Both of these teams have that capability.
And we hear about Huni tilt fairly frequently about, oh man, and a lot of times Huni can have a terrible game and bounce back with a great game. But I'm a little bit worried about Rainover because the entire playoffs he has seemed not quite on his game. There was so much lane swapping. Previously, Rainover was extremely good in that meta, but ever since 615, it doesn't seem like he's able to assert the same type of dominance that he had over other junglers, and he's getting caught out of position, and his early game ganks just aren't hitting. Rainover, if anyone, needs to pick up and be the strong player.
Yeah, which is very curious because Immortals were confident when the theory of 615, and then when they got on stage, it seems like something they just haven't completely adapted to yet.
Yeah. And we'll see if they have something else to put into practice here, as it's going to be an amazing series. Game 1 has gone to Cloud9, so let's check in with the analyst desk to break it down.
They might have to come up with something different, Riv, after a dominating game out of C9 here in Game 1 of the series. Now, that said, it did take a little bit of time for some real action to start happening on the map. Both teams playing pretty cautious, at least through the early game. Not that they weren't making moves or making invades and looking for kills, but we saw nothing traded until about that 18-minute mark. Before we get into the gameplay, though, we got to hit Champ Select and see what these teams are prioritizing coming into this best of 5.
I think this is like one of the most important things to look at because Immortals do a bunch of things with their draft that relate to like covering up their what seem to be their weaknesses. So obviously the first pick Rek'Sai to get Rainover on something he's comfortable with. And then they know they can get Vlad later because C9 doesn't prioritize it, and they show their solo laners right away to give their weaker bot lane a chance to counterpick against the Jhin that they didn't have enough bans to deal with.
And we heard Jet say that, okay, they're probably looking for the Ashe matchup into the Jhin. We know how it works, but again, back to the Ezreal, and this is the problem that Immortals has had all year long. Once the meta shifted away from the Quinns and the Fioras into the top side, Immortals doesn't know where to put their utility. Where is the utility player, the CC, the engage, and they're left with a composition where Adrian's job, his sole purpose, should be the engage, but we saw his ultimate be used solely as a counter to stop the Jhin ultimate, which is not what the team needs, and this is why the team fights go so poorly. Just there's a lack of cohesion between their drafts.
You talk about Immortals kind of putting this patchwork draft together to cover some of their weaknesses. Do you feel that this is the right approach? I mean, obviously they lost with it, so you might say it was ineffective in that sense, but is that the proper strategy here? Should they be looking to get Rainover off the ground, or should they be putting more focus onto the people that are actually performing?
I actually don't hate the draft. So there's parts I like and parts I don't like. I don't like the fact that their bot lane counterpick is merely there to hang on because they can't play Ashe the way they should be able to.
Right.
I don't really like that part. I do like that their laners all are very hard to gank, and Meteos on Zac can't get anything going early on, and that they should have this faster farming Rek'Sai, and they should have what looks like a pretty good comp, but the problem is that they just don't play it quite right. Like Rainover, we talk about his path, his item build. If he just went Tiamat and spent the first 15 minutes of the game hard farming and gets up like 30, 40 CS over Zac, because nothing was happening, and his laners are safe, none of that happens. Instead, he goes the slower build, goes his Cinder Hulk.
And we had a successful gank on the bottom side onto Cloud9, but that was never converted into anything more than just one early Ocean Dragon, which granted will help the lane significantly, but not enough to transition into something much bigger. And because they got that dragon so free the first time around, they get a little bit too confident and they go for that same second dragon where Cloud9 is ready for it.
And I will want to return to the Rainover point, but I want to go through our replays first and kind of get back to that looking into Game 2. So the first one comes 16:45 into the game. This is the first fight of the game.
Yes.
4 for 1
Dragon
in
fight.
favor of Cloud9 plus a dragon.
Where Immortals takes the same advantage as last time. They're trying to solo it out, but Cloud9 immediately goes for the engage with a steal, which is amazing. Here we see the Bard ultimate onto Sneaky, but Cassiopeia is going to go untouched. She's going to hit a great petrifying gaze, so it stops Pobeltra's damage
Watch
right away.
Impact here just chain CC Huni too. He can't get into that stun to set up the rest of his team to follow up on damage, and he just gets popped without being able to ult.
And Meteos does a great job throughout this fight because he's in there tanking up so much DPS, but he has his passive up, and he's just right back up there trying to take, and he's going to be able to not donate
Don't
anything
give that to
Sneaky.
Sneaky.
Like, this is mine. I have earned this. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's, the problem with these team fights is just that like the members of Immortals aren't able to get their champions rolling in the way they should. Like Rainover's in the middle, it just dies. Adrian's Bard is only being effective at stopping the Jhin ult, which isn't enough for a Bard player. And then on top of that, you have Huni who died in multiple fights without getting his ult off.
And the fight that probably went closest to going into Immortals' favor is our next one, but it still ended up being a 3-for-0 in favor of Cloud9 at the end of it all. This is back at the Dragon Pit. Now we're fighting over an Infernal 23 minutes into the game.
Once again, we see that it's going to be Impact is going to get his TP off first. Povelter gets an awesome E damage out there to maybe get this fight in their favor, but then it just gets kited out. Once again, Rainover just dies right at the start of the fight. Huni's ultimate, he just gets kited back. He dies next, and then it's just a chase down to the rest of the Immortals here as Povelter gets chain CC'd again.
Bartle once again goes to the back solely to deal with
And I
Sneaky.
think what we're seeing here is the evolution of Cloud9, the comps that they kind of like. We know Meteos isn't that risk taker. He wants to be that front line, the CC for his team. And it looks like Cloud9 is very comfortable running a two-threat composition with Jensen and Sneaky being the only heavy DPS, whereas you have just a massive front line in Meteos, in Impact, and Smoothie that are just so difficult to get past, whereas normally you see what Immortals was playing with the Vlad comps, everybody just dives into the backline and is able to DPS, but when you're trying to get past Braum, Zach, and Gnar, it's just not possible.
And now's when I want to look at that game too and return to this Rainover point. Jat was saying, you know, we're used to with Huni having sink or swim games where he goes off, 1,000 DPM, and then we have games where he can fall apart and it looks like he's tilting. Rainover, though, is the guy that we're uncertain about because he used to be the most consistent player, you know, in the region.
So here's the thing. When junglers are usually struggling, where players are struggling, one of the key things that often gets told is, look, don't worry about your teammates, especially in the jungle position. Don't worry about your teammates. You're falling behind because you're trying to help everybody else out. You're trying to do too many things at once. Just focus on getting yourself ahead, which is what you're talking about with the Tiamat point. We want to see him get the Tiamat, get himself ahead, and then when you're nice and far ahead of the other jungler, you can spend a lot more time dedicated to helping other lanes, because that's what we saw. Huni was struggling in lane the entire time, using his ult every single time to get into the top side where so much action could have happened, but it just looked like, hey, we're holding on here, we're still alive.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point about Huni because it kind of seemed like they put him in a position where they're like, Impact's going to be really good no matter what we do, so just don't worry about him.
Right.
You hold on, and like we'll focus more on the bot side. But once again, they got, like you said, that one early gank off, but then Rainover couldn't convert it into anything. He got the Ocean Drake, which was nice, but then
it's not enough.
Yeah, he should be in Zach's jungle. You saw what happened when Sven got a small lead against the Zach. He was all over him, stealing his camps, 2 levels up, one of the highest in the game. Like, that's what we want to see out of Rainover. He used to be such an efficient jungler, and it's just lacking.
All right, well, we have some ideas, but Rainover's the guy we're looking at to make a change here going into Game 2. We're headed to a break, but stick around because when we come back, we'll see if Immortals have a shot to tie up the series against Cloud9 or if Cloud9 extends it 2-0. See you soon.
Hold the hands. So we're gonna get, we're gonna win. Definitely we're a better team. We got this.
Can you guys feel the friendship?
Actually, this is still cute.
This is the
our
bond.
friendship, dude.
We're gonna see Adrian going down, and Tempered Fate does not help too much. And they are on to Smooth. The Immortals now losing. This is huge for Cloud9.
That's right.
Okay. Wait, can we do it?
I can go.
I can go.
As a dead.
Get on Rek'Sai.
Rek'Sai, let's just start.
Echo's in the pit. Echo's in the pit.
Careful. Kite.
Yo, Baron's really low. We can finish it.
Rek'Sai's dead.
Almost goes down. A great hit up from Rainover, but can the rest of the team follow? That has been the question. He has a focus, and he goes down immediately as Povelter finds himself left alone on the front line. Another one. A triple goes to Sneaky. Very even 15 minutes. This bomb exploded for Cloud9, and it is 1-0.